also a Silk and Slopes alumni. Her and I had the chance to work together a couple years ago, which was awesome. So it's great to have her join me here as well. She's also volunteered training software engineering to high school students in Utah. So we're going to talk to her a little bit about her experience at Bottega, her background, and how it ties into this new announcement today with Jordan. So thanks for joining us, Kiana.
For sure. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. If you'll just start out kind of telling us your background, how you got involved in Bottega, and why you chose to become a software engineer.
Yeah, so originally I come from a business background, and I have had these, dreams and goals of mine, and it wasn't until I had a conversation with Randy Zuckerberg, she was like, you should just take a coding class to see how you like it. And at that point, I started realizing how tech is really involved in every aspect of almost every market and industry you can think about. And so, from there, I started taking coding, and I saw, this was when I was a senior in high school, and there was a program that Bottega was a part of, a summer boot camp, and I was able to start, my coding journey with that. And I just fell in love. I fell in love with the ability to see a project from beginning to end in this continual learning process. From there, I decided, after graduating from that boot camp, I decided to go full-time and work on the Bottega course. And then I graduated last year, and I've been loving my coding journey since.
That's awesome. So for someone who may not know a lot about Bottega, what is the experience like with Bottega? How do you learn? What are the different platforms that you use? What's a typical study session like? Kind of walk us through that learning experience with Bottega.
Yeah, basically Bottega is they use a platform called DevCamp, and DevCamp is where you go in, you log in, you have your it's kind of like GitHub. If the developers listening, they know about GitHub. You can track, you see how you're doing. There are coding questions, there's videos, and they have different courses and different tracks for what you want to learn. So there's you can take some on this front end, you can take back end, and there's a full stack as well. And now with this React Native, and so really you go in and there's videos that Jordan does where it's just concepts, and then there's some parts of the course where you build a whole website from beginning to scratch. Login features, you're able to build databases, and so there's just about all the major technologies that they're using in the industry right now. There's courses on that, and then that's kind of in the Bottega platform.
That's awesome. So as obviously this is kind of a classroom learning setting, but more digital, are you all logged in at the same time as students, or is it kind of an independent study course? Do you have your own pace, or is it, set guidelines of different things that you're supposed to learn at different times? How does that work with different students at the same time?
For sure, there's two options. You can take the the full time, and you can go to a class, and if you like that, and if you feel comfortable with having a professor or someone there with you, and if you're you have the ability to do that. Also, if you're the kind of person that likes say you're working full time and you're trying to go into coding, but you're not able to dedicate full time hours, there the independent side of the Bottega course, where you're able to go in and you still have access to mentors. And you still have access to, if you need help, there's mentors on standby to help. And so it's the beautiful thing about the Bottega course is that it's tailored to different learning types, and so you're able to really go at the pace that you need to, or if you like fast paced, you can take the live full-time course that they offer there at headquarters.
That's awesome. So you mentioned that there's different mentors. Obviously, learning software engineering requires a lot of effort, as I'm sure you know.
Yeah.
Questions that will come up along the way. So how do you receive help from those mentors? Is it more one-on-one? Is it digital? You mentioned being able to go in person. Walk us through how mentors have helped you throughout your journey.
They have been super duper helpful. The instructors that I had there, I was able to, it was in a classroom setting. So if you are remote, zooming into the full-time class, you have access to ask your fellow peers. Also, there's the professor who's there, the teacher. However, if you're running and you're doing it on your own, you're doing the part-time, there's Slack channels there to help you, and they're there to help you when you need, small questions, and it's one-on-one, very, very personal. There's the TAs that they're there to help you. So, you really are, it's you and the mentors and you're able to take that, because it's hard to get into it, but it's super rewarding. And so having that mentoring, there to help you, it's awesome. For sure, it helped me a lot.
Yeah, that is so important that you have somebody that you can always lean on as well. And earlier, Jordan was, that you were taught by Jordan. And so we're going to talk to him in a minute, but can you tell us about your experience learning from him and how he helped you along the way also?
I've loved learning from Jordan. I remember when I was starting to get into this whole coding thing, and before I took the boot camp, I was looking at YouTube videos, and it's not the same having someone who knows he has plenty of experience, but he's able to teach it in a simplified way where if you come from zero background, you can go into 100% confident and understand what he's teaching. Also, remember in my course when I was going through my cohort, we always joke around about how positive Jordan always is in his videos. And no matter if there's a big bug going on and you're able to figure out the code, and it's a really great environment. And I feel like the most valuable thing during this whole Bottega course was, I learned how to code and I learned how to build websites and different application databases. However, what they taught me, which I think is a lifelong thing, is they taught me how to learn, like learning to learn, if that makes sense. And so I was able to, through their teaching style, through his teaching style, I was able to learn, even after I graduated from the course, how can I continue to learn? How can I, because, this industry really is, being a software developer is continual learning. And so they really gear you with that skill set, and I'm very, very appreciative to the Bottega and to Jordan and his talent.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us, Kiana. I wish you the best of luck with all your future endeavors, and we hope to see you on Silk and Silks again soon too. So.
No, thank you. It was a pleasure.
Awesome. Well, we're going to jump over and interview Jordan now. Just to let you guys know a little bit about Jordan before he hops on. He's the CTO and founder of Bottega, where he leads instruction and curriculum development for all of the DevCamp and Bottega Code schools around the world. He has a master's in software engineering from Texas Tech. He's traveled the world building applications and training individuals on a variety of technology stacks, including Ruby on Rails, Python, React.js, React Native, JavaScript, and TypeScript, with specialty in API and machine learning development. He's also developed applications for Quip, Eventbrite, and DevCamp. As a teacher, he focuses on project-driven education with a focus on job-centric techniques. This means that he focuses specifically on teaching the skills needed in the software development industry. This style of teaching is conducive to learning how to build real-world products that adhere to industry best practices. Additionally, Jordan has published multiple books on programming and computer science for Pact Publishing, along with developing training curriculum for Bottega, LearnCode, DevCamp, and AppDev, on the topics of Ruby on Rails, Java, AngularJS, Node, SQL, API development, TypeScript, and algorithms. When we were prepping for this call as well, people were able to submit comments, and Jordan is definitely loved by all of his students. There was a comment saying by Tom, he's in the middle of software engineering, a full stack course with Jordan at Bottega, and he says that he loves you and you're a wonderful instructor, and you make understanding the material easy. So just a little plug-in for Jordan. He's definitely loved and adored by all of his students, so we're excited to have him join us. So thanks for joining us today, Jordan.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Awesome. Well, we're going to start off just talking about your background a little bit. As if building software wasn't hard enough, you've also been training over 40,000 people in over 163 countries. So on top of your software building, why do you spend so much time training? Why is that an important part of your life and of your career, and why does it mean so much to you?
Well, I absolutely love development, but one of the things I love that even more than building applications and software is teaching others. I absolutely love seeing, and over the past decade, I've trained so many, and I've got to see so many students go from scratch or from one knowledge state to a level of mastery, and being able to see them do that, to be able to see them get new careers or promotions or anything like that, that's something that I'm incredibly passionate about. So I love doing that, no matter what stack we're working on or whatever it is that they're learning. I have a lot of joy in being able to do that.
That's awesome. And it's so important to, give back and help people through their journey if you've been there yourself. So thank you for that. That's awesome. It's hard to pin the number of software engineers out there. LinkedIn alone lists 12.4 million worldwide. I feel like I know your opinion on this, but is there a need for more? Do you think that there's too many? What is your view on that, and why do you feel it is important that there are more out there?
Oh, absolutely. There's the number of software developers and the need for them is growing at a near exponential rate. And even though there may be a large number of developers that are currently out there, every single company now is becoming a technology company. It doesn't really matter what industry they're in. At some level or another, they're having to integrate technology. And everything that we're seeing right now with all of the self-quarantine and all of that, it's even making that happen even faster. Everyone's having to dig deeper into their tech stacks and build out more automation and more software and more tools. And so, yeah, I think the need is growing at an incredibly fast rate, and it's just going to keep going from here on out.
For sure. Yeah, it's definitely true that every company, even if they're not specifically a tech company, they are somehow touched by technology, and it's part of their business. So learning more about it and knowing more about it is very important in this day and age. So let's move into mobile development, the whole reason for this interview. But before we get too deep into it, I would love if you kind of give a brief overview of what React Native is, especially for somebody who maybe has never heard about it, is a beginner like me. Just kind of a brief overview so that as we go a little bit more into depth, people can understand.
Absolutely. So React Native is essentially it's a set of tools. It's a set of JavaScript tools that allow developers to write JavaScript and React code that can compile down into a smartphone app. So it's an incredibly helpful tool because if we go back, not even that far back in the past, and this is back when I started building mobile apps, because I started building mobile apps in kind of the early days of iOS when we had to use tools like Objective-C and languages like that were very challenging to learn. But the other issue is that when Android came along, you not only had to build one app, one for iOS. If you wanted to build for Android, you had to have a completely separate code base for that. So what React Native does is it's a tool that allows you to write and create one code base that can then compile down into both platforms. And so you can have one application and your development team, or if you're building it yourself, you only have to actually create one application, but then that can still be sent out to both app stores, and individuals using both operating systems are still going to be able to use it. So it's an incredibly powerful tool. The other reason I am a big fan of it too is that the learning curve is much lower for React Native than some of the other languages that are out there, because at the end of the day, it's just JavaScript code. So a web developer who has no mobile development experience can dive right in and start creating mobile apps.
That's great. Thanks for that explanation. That helps me understand a little bit more too. So thank you for that. Similar to the software engineering question, a quick question about mobile apps. The Google and Apple mobile ecosystems are reaching the 3 million apps benchmark. Do you think the demand for apps is saturated? And do you really think that there's a need for more mobile development? What's your opinion on that? And obviously with React Native tying into it, why is it so important to teach this?
Oh, absolutely. I think that kind of just like the need for more software developers is growing, the need for more apps is growing in the same way. We're getting away from the apps having to, take care of every single part of your life, and now the applications are simply utilities for you. So no matter what it is, whether it's your task manager, whether it's your banking system, whether it's a learning application, every single thing that we're doing in our kind of day-to-day lives, we're kind of getting to the point where we almost expect now that company that we're working with to provide an application so that I can carry that little piece of functionality with me wherever I go. And so I think that the need for the apps is even growing because now companies are realizing that they need to have that in order to stay up with their competition.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And not only do we expect that, I think it's definitely an advantage to companies to have something on our phones that connects us with them right there. That's a great point. So the whole point of this call was to announce that Bottega has released a new mobile development with React Native course for 3 main audiences. So there's one for beginners, developers, and React developers. So can you tell us a little bit more about this course and the different audiences and how it's tailored to
through the key fundamentals, walking you through each stage of knowledge that you need all the way up until you're building your full mobile applications. If you have a little bit of a development experience, but maybe you don't have a lot of React knowledge or something like that, we can slide in the knowledge that you need on the React side, and then you can start building the mobile apps. If you're a developer who's been building React web applications for a while and you're pretty comfortable with that type of ecosystem, but you want to be able to branch off and now also be able to build mobile apps, then you can go straight into that React Native content and start building out those kinds of elements. One of the other things we're also doing is we're integrating TypeScript into that so that everyone who's going through these programs are going to be learning with the most up-to-date, the best practices, and kind of the most modern approach to building out these type of applications.
That's great. So Google has Android Studio, Apple has Swift for mobile development. We touched on this a little bit, but maybe you could go more into depth of why React Native is more beneficial compared to these other native tools. Then also touch on, is it really just one tool? Do you have to also, at the end of it, still tweak something for Android or iOS? Is it really just learning one thing for both?
Absolutely. All 3 platforms, whether it's native iOS, whether it is native Android, or if it's a tool like React Native, they're all great tools and they all have there's always a right time to use them. And so when you're building out your applications, one of the biggest things you have to decide are things like your budget and your team constraints. So if you're in a giant company with thousands of developers, then you could probably afford to have dedicated teams for each platform. But if you're in a company that is trying to keep a tight budget or anything like that, then the fact that you can consolidate down your resources into focusing on a single platform and a single code base can really make the entire development workflow much easier and much more cost effective. Another thing that I've found, because I've worked in both scenarios, I've headed up teams where I had my Java Android team and I had my iOS team, and there are a lot of challenges because anytime that a new feature had to be released and a new version had to be created, you actually had to watch and work with both teams to make sure they were releasing that and building at the same time, which is a very challenging task to do. The fact that React Native and tools like it allow you to consolidate that into a single code base just makes the entire process much more efficient. The other thing that's very helpful, especially say you're a developer who's a consultant and you have a freelance development business and you've been building web applications for people, but you want to branch out and you want to start building mobile applications and increase the number of clients that you can get. If you want to do that and use Swift for iOS development and Java for Android, there is a huge learning curve and time commitment that you need to spend to go start building and learning those platforms, and they're constantly changing. Each new version means you have to go back and you're going to have to find out what's different in each of those, and it makes it very challenging. Whereas if, say that you're that developer and you already know JavaScript, you can jump right in and start building mobile apps for your clients and start extending out that consulting business or add that to what you can offer the company you're working in. So the learning curve is also much easier, which can make the jump into mobile easier.
That all sounds like amazing stuff. With the technology that people have today, how is this tracker course different than doing yourself or using courses on sites like your YouTube? Why is Bottega's course on React Native different, more beneficial? What can people learn from it that they can't from these other sites?
Yeah, there are a number of reasons. Starting with the curriculum, what we've put together in terms of the features that we teach are the most comprehensive that we've seen anywhere in the market. We teach everything from the fundamentals for best practices on how to build React Native applications, but we also teach all of the other key elements that the typical application needs to have. So working with permissions, working with device permissions, such as being able to create authentication systems and being able to work with the camera roll, and the different elements that you need to build real-life applications are all built directly into the system. We also show how to work with what's called the Expo framework, which is something that allows for making deployments to the App Store much easier and much more streamlined. And one of the biggest differences, though, is the fact that not only do we have the comprehensive curriculum, but we also pair that with a mentor. So as someone starts to go through the program, all the way from the beginning, all the way through the end, that mentor is able to walk them along whenever they have questions. They can get those answered whenever they run into bugs or whenever they maybe just need a little bit more assistance, then they're able to get that. And that's really helpful for any type of development learning. But when it comes to mobile, that is even more critical, because I can tell you from experience, back from when I first started with mobile apps, there are a few very challenging parts to mobile development, especially related to things such as deploying to the app stores and working with permissions and some of those things that if you're trying to do it yourself or you're just trying to follow along on tutorials, that can be really challenging and time consuming. With what we've put together, where we have the curriculum paired with the mentor support model, then it can just make that entire learning process much more streamlined.
That's great. And like you said, publishing your app can be as challenging or even more challenging than building it. So once a student has completed the course, their own app, do you guys also teach them how to upload it into Google Play or the Apple App Store? Do you coach them through that as well, or is it just they build their app and then are kind of on their own?
Well, they build it, and then that's what the mentors are there for, is to help walk them through that, because the app stores are constantly changing. So I know from putting a few apps on the stores just from a year or two ago, that's a completely different process, and they have a different set of requirements than they have this month. And so that's constantly evolving, which is why not only do we want to teach them those kinds of rules and the steps to follow, but we also pair that with the mentors who can help them when those changes occur and can just really make the process go a lot faster than it normally would if they're just trying to do it by themselves.
That's awesome. Another thing that we've already kind of touched on a little bit with cost effectiveness and being more efficient, but why is this beneficial from an employer's perspective to have employees learn this course?
Oh, that's a great question. And really, it comes down to giving your employees the ability to not only better themselves, but also to have additional tool sets that they can use for the applications that they're going to be building for you corporately. So if you have, say, a web developer who's a great web developer, and you teach them a skill set like this, all of a sudden you've almost doubled the types of applications and the ways that that developer can help you build your company and make your company more profitable and more successful. So anytime that you can kind of skill up your own workforce, that's always there's a huge benefit to that.
That's awesome. Turning to audience questions, we've got a question from Brigham Lind. He says, do you have any recommended resources for when it comes to mobile application best practices? This is more of a broad question, but along the same topic.
Yes, absolutely. So, and that's something that I actually spend a lot of time in the course walking through, because the mobile development space changes even faster than the web development space in some regards. And so things like books and resources like that, there's some good ones, but it changes so quickly that you might find yourself going through it and then finding that a bunch of the instructions or the guides or anything like that have changed. So what I walk through, and really what my answer to that really would be, is focusing on the tools that you're building with. So for example, in the course, what I do is, instead of just saying, follow these instructions for implementing this feature, I actually go into the documentation and the source code for the libraries we're working with, and I say, let's see what the developers recommended here, because my goal for this entire course isn't just to teach them how to build the application we build in the code school, but my goal is to teach them how to become and to think like a mobile developer. And so I show them exactly the same set of processes that I personally follow whenever I'm adding a new feature or I'm doing something I've never done before. And I teach them how to research each of those things like that.
That's great. We also have another question from Mackenzie Vaudry Lloyd. Sorry if I'm saying any of these names wrong. I'm not the greatest at pronouncing names. She asked, do all the alumni get access to the new React course? Obviously somebody is taking courses at Bottega. Do they get access to this new course?
Yep, I would say for that to reach out to their mentor, because I'm not sure on how that's structured. I think it's gonna be different for the alumni in terms of like when they signed up and those kinds of things. So I'd say just reach out to their mentor, and they should be able to help them find the answer to that.
Great. Looks like there's several other questions along those lines, so that should answer that. And do you have anything else that you can think of to discuss about this new React Native course? Anything else you want to mention before we end this call today?
I would just say it was a really fun one to build out. I'm very excited about it. I'm really excited to see how students start progressing through it. The first few sets that has already gone through have loved it. They actually have full applications on their phones that they've been able to show to other people, and it really is a fun thing to do, to see what you've created in code on the computer, to see what that looks like on your own device. That's something that I think is pretty exciting, and so I'm really happy that others are going to be able to enjoy that as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. We did have one other question come in while you're talking about that. Somebody asked, is this course available? When is it available? It sounds like it's already available. Is that?
Yes, today was the full official launch of it, yes.
Well, perfect. If you guys have any other questions about this course, you can go to bottega.tech. You can also follow them on Instagram at bottega.tech or on Facebook at Bottega Coding School. Thanks so much, Jordan, for joining us today. And I think we're going to hop off now.
Thanks so much.